She was a rich woman, she had rich taste. She felt the blood running through her veins. She liked the life she had, she loved her big cats and the beauty of being untamed. Well,
you know, his voice really isn't that bad. God knows how much auto-tune and whatever goes into his editing process. But Joe Exotic, the Tiger King, this documentary, just like you, I feel, was pretty entertaining. Something that after you get done watching it, maybe nothing really is going to compare to what you just watched because it was just so crazy. I really enjoyed it. When I was watching this, it reminded me of when I was watching a Making a Murderer for the first time, like how you just want to see the next episode. I'm going to click on to the next one, and then once it's all done, you sit there and think about, like, what the hell did I just watch? And sitting there thinking about it, I was like, God, that Carole Baskin lady, she is a strange woman. She is pretty strange. And however Netflix does their movie or documentaries and stuff, it's going to be biased one way or the other. I think both Carole and Joe are like suing Netflix, or I know Joe's suing for sure for like $100 million. And then Carole Baskin, I saw they have some thing on their website that's refuting Netflix's Tiger King documentary. I'm going to go over a bunch of stuff about Carole Baskin today.
Hi, I'm a voter in your district. Zip code 33625. I want you to end tiger farming. Thank you. See how easy that is? You can do it anytime, anywhere.
Just some things that just aren't in the documentary, or after sitting here, I can't remember every single thing that was in the documentary because I'm usually looking at my phone or doing something else while I'm watching Netflix. So anyways, Joe Exotic is not a good guy. From watching all that stuff, and like he seems to be a criminal. He's in prison for a long time. But when you look at it, like, is justice really done in this? How everything that is put in front of you, just with how it was made from Netflix, it makes you feel like justice really wasn't done, and it gives you a lot of questions. So I wanted to just look into Carole Baskin today and more into Don Lewis and her first husband, and kind of see what was going on with that, and maybe why are things the way they are with Carole. Like, why does she seem so off? You know, and I feel bad saying that, but maybe it's the way the documentary made it. And let's just look at some of the stuff I found here today.
thing was fine, just as sweet as wine, but her husband went and disappeared.
So I just had to do like a deep Google search for a lot of this stuff. This is 10 News. It's Tampa, Florida, so that area. Disappearance on Easy Street. Millionaire Don Lewis disappeared without a trace 5 years ago. Did the eccentric founder of a wildlife sanctuary start a new life someplace else, or did someone just want it to look that way? I'll go through this whole article, and I'll try to cut and edit the best I can so it's not too much, but looks into the disappearance of an animal-loving millionaire who vanished without a trace more than 5 years ago. Carole Lewis still cares for 170 exotic cats no one else wants.
We heard a big cat rescue in Citrus Park. Heard its founder talk about the abused and unwanted cats that she saved.
But former volunteers say there's more that you should know.
If you visit their website, the first page tells you they're providing a home to, quote, abused and abandoned cats. But former volunteers say what you may not know is many of the cats living there weren't in need of being rescued. They were bought from breeders to be bred. In fact, at least 30 of the cats were actually born right there at the facility. You can see some of them here in this home video. Former volunteers tell us other stories are, at best, exaggerated.
If it's not a rescue, it shouldn't be tagged as a rescue.
Jim Moore volunteered for nearly 5 years at Big Cat Rescue.
She wanted to one day have the largest private collection of exotic cats in the world.
The website says many of Big Cat Rescue's servals were purchased at auctions where uncaring owners dumped them. We also found the former owner of this cat, described on the website as coming to Big Cat Rescue after a pet shop owner was afraid she would bite children who taunted her.
Not a word is true.
The pet shop owner says she parted with the serval because she was paid $1,000. One of the most convincing pieces of evidence for many of Baskin's critics is this video. It's of tiger cub Shere Khan. If you believe Big Cat Rescue's website, he was, quote, unwanted and uncared for, and, quote, could not walk. But listen to the story Big Cat Rescue's founder told shortly after getting him.
This is Shere Khan. He was bottle raised in a loving and nurturing home.
I see a normal tiger cub.
But Carole's life on Easy Street isn't easy without the man who helped her start the wildlife sanctuary. Her husband, Don. Jack Donald Lewis made millions in real estate, trucking, and other businesses. Carole says he was an unusual man. Don wore jeans and t-shirts from yard sales, but always carried lots of cash in case he wanted to buy an airplane or something. Carole says it wasn't unusual for her husband to leave without telling her first. She says he was planning to transport cars to Costa Rica when he left home Monday, August 18th, 1997. Jorge Fernandez has spent much of the last 5 years looking for Don Lewis. The Lewis case is one of the most extensive missing person files in the Hillsborough County Sheriff's Office. Fernandez worked the case with Larry Lingo Sr. Here's what detectives learned about the disappearance of Don Lewis. Monday, August 18, 1997, Don was supposed to deliver real estate signs to his lawyer's office on Memorial Drive. The signs were left before the office opened. No one saw Don. Tuesday the 19th, Carole Lewis filed a missing persons report with sheriff deputies Wednesday the 20th. Don's blue van was found at Pilot County Airport in Spring Hill. The airport manager says it had been there a couple of days, parked on the grass between some planes on Highway 52. The keys were on the floorboard. Deputies found no evidence. The detectives were tipped Don and Carole were having marital problems. Records show Don went to court just 2 months before he disappeared, claiming Carole threatened to kill him.
But then it got a little crazy, it got a little hazy, and the cops said there's something wrong here.
This is what he wrote in the police report. In the Circuit Court of the 13th Judicial Circuit of the State of Florida and the Hillsborough County Family Law Division. There's Jack D. Lewis, and there's Carole. Verbal face-to-face threats to immediate bodily harm or injury together with apparent ability to do so. Check. Respondent has the access to a firearm. He checked it 3 times, and there's a smear there. Respondent has caused you a considerable amount of emotional distress by repeatedly harassing or following you. Check. This is what he wrote. This is the second time Carole has got angry enough to threaten to kill me. I was away from our house. I was away from our house. She gave 2 junkmen permission to come on property and remove trucks and equipment that I had store there. Man, reading this, the first grade reading level thing, I guess makes more sense, but I don't know. You'd have to know more. That a man owed me $17,000 on when I found out the man that owned the equipment had to call sheriff to make them stop when I got back. Me and Carole got into a big fuss. She ordered me out of the house or she'd kill me, and if I came back, she would kill me. She has a .85 revolver, and she took my .357 and hid it. I have owned the home and land 17 years. We have only lived there 3 years. I have a lot of equipment and animals there. Cat. Most violent. I have 132 exotic cats I take. God dang, bro. That is insane to me. That way that is written.
Oh, here, kitty, kitty. Well, Mama's got some treats for you. Oh, here.
This is from the Tampa Bay Times. Mysterious millionaire still missing. Don Lewis, a self-made millionaire known for his exotic cat sanctuary, left August 18, 1997, and never returned. The next day, authorities found his van in private Pasco County Airport, where he was known to buy planes with cash. The thing with that, the whole buying planes with cash on the spot, you have to like get a plane brought there or flown in there. It's going to have to go through some sort of check-in to get in there. So you think the person who owns that hangar would know if Don left in a plane or not. One of the last directions they pointed in the wildlife on Easy Street, where Carole Lewis, 37, still lives and cares for the couple's lions, tigers, and leopards. Last fall, detectives asked her to take a polygraph test, but on the advice of attorney Ron Cacciatore, she declined. That's crazy to me, kinda, you know? I mean, if you're innocent, I feel like you should never be afraid to just go take one of those, because you should just pass, you know? And if you don't pass, they don't ever get used in court anyways, it seems. So it's like, why not just do it? If it were up to her, Lewis said she would let detectives search the wildlife sanctuary's 40 acres and even inspect the meat freezers. And that's pointless, too, just saying, like, yeah, let anyone come on. There'd be bones here, if anything. You could clean anything up. It's a huge place. There's a lot of people there. You could clean up the bones. I'll link all these articles that I have on here. This BCR watch goes into who they are a little more, and there's some interesting stuff in all these, especially the videos. Just the way she talks, I mean, maybe this is how she talks, and I guess it is, but it just seems so fakey. Like, oof, I could not stand being in front of someone like that very long. I'd have to leave.
You can't find this taste in the zoo. Oh, here, kitty, kitty.
This is a People article, December 07, 1998. We don't need to read that. Don Lewis, then 60, disappeared without a trace, and some people, including his grown children from a previous marriage and his longtime secretary, suspect his wife of foul play. His daughters even speculate she may have fed them to the tigers. It's a perfect scenario to dispose someone, says the oldest of the 4 children, Donna Pettis, age 42. We were upset that the cops didn't test the DNA on the meat grinder for her part. Among them, the notion that Don may have staged his disappearance. Finds that Sweeney Todd theory grimly humorous. My tigers eat meat. They don't eat people, she says. There would be bones and remains of my husband out there. I'm amazed that people would even think such a thing. If Don Lewis' disappearance sounds as though it might have been scripted by Elmore Leonard, so could much of the 6 decades of wheeling and dealing that preceded it. He had the Midas touch, says daughter Pettis, a Tampa area manicurist. It's a hard word to say for me. He could walk through cow dippings and come out smelling like a rose. The Dade City, Florida native could mentally compute interest rates in less time than it took most people to use a calculator. Don's disappearance has left Carole Lewis ensnarled in a nasty legal catfight with his children over control of his business affairs and holdings estimated more than $5 million, accusing Carole of forging their father's will and property of eternity. His daughters want to prevent her from draining the coffers and care for the animals. Carole maintains that the children are entitled only to about $1 million in properties that belonged to their father before he married her. Carole can use just $152,000 from the real estate operations to run the refuge, when the current annual budget is expected to exceed $225,000. Last year, the sanctuary spent $22,000 on veterinary bills alone. As a result, Carole is trying to negotiate settlements that would give her stepdaughters a total of $1 million in properties and allow her to manage the bulk of the estates until Don can be declared legally dead in 2004. The cats are her life, says Carole's mother, Barbara Stairs, 57, who has been helping run the real estate business. She doesn't care what she lives in as long as the cats are taken care of. A truce with Don's daughters would ease the financial crunch, but the cloud of suspicion hovering over Carole Lewis and her beloved cats may remain. Can you imagine having people think you killed your husband or wife and not being able to prove otherwise, she asks. Without a body, there's nothing I can do to clear my name. Wow.
Well, Mama Carole, she sure loves you. Oh, here, kitty, kitty. Well, Mama made this for you.
When he spotted Carole walking barefoot down the Tampa street after a fight with her husband. The very next day, Carole, whose daughter Jamie was 6 months old at the time, became the latest in a long line of Lewis girlfriends. That's how he met her. Despite his wealth, which grew substantially after Carole began helping him buy and sell real estate in 1984, much of it tax-delinquent properties he acquired at auction, Lewis had a split personality concerning money. The trained, though not licensed pilot always carried enough cash to purchase an airplane, but he shopped for his clothes at garage sales. I used to tell him, says McQueen, that he put the chirp in cheap, cheap, cheap. When Don and Carole finally married in 1991, the year after his divorce, he gave her a $14 wedding ring during the courthouse ceremony. Eventually, their collection expanded to include 200 cats of 17 species housed in a non-profit sanctuary staffed by 5 full-time employees and more than 100 volunteers. To help offset the cost, they turned 4 cabins into unique bread and breakfast for $75 a night. Guests get their choice of tame bobcats, cougars, and several as bedmates. You pay that much at a Holiday Inn, says Carole, with no entertainment. So, I mean, that's kind of, she's running a bed and breakfast and letting people play with the cats, which she was against.
The majority of the animals that are listed on the website where it says born into the pet trade were actually born there.
That's because back prior to 1997, that's what we were. We were pet owners. We were the pet trade. He was set on breeding virtually every cat here.
Baskin says she's upfront about that history. The extent of that breeding, however, is described nowhere on the site.
These days, the solidly booked cabins are attracting their share of crime buffs, tantalized by the mystery of just what happened to Don Lewis on August 18, 1997. There's currently a wealth of suspects and scenarios, but precious little evidence. Although Don's 1989 Dodge van was found at the airport 40 miles from the refuge 2 days after his wife reported him missing, none of his credit cards was subsequently used. Neither the private eye Carole hired nor the extensive police investigation, including searches of the property Don Lewis owned in Costa Rica, where he told some family and friend he was planning to move, uncovered anything more sinister than indications that he may have been involved in extramarital affairs and questionable business practices. Police did learn that 2 months before he vanished, Don Lewis had filed court documents seeking a domestic violence injunction against Carole, accusing her of threatening to shoot him. But after the judge failed to find grounds for an injunction, Don apparently didn't fear for his life very much since he continued to live with her. Carole Lewis maintained she never threatened her husband and had no knowledge of planned injunction. The worst thing I ever did, she says, was threaten to report him to the IRS. Admits John Marciano, one of the lead detectives in the case. We don't have a good idea of what really happened to him.
So if you're ever down in Tampa on a big cat refuge, don't pick a fight with your wife.
So they have on their page, Big Cat Rescue, refuting Netflix Tiger King. Some of the things they go over here. So this is coming from Carole's website. In the few years preceding his disappearance, Don's behavior was gradually showing signs of mental deterioration. Originally Don, from the time to time would buy vehicles or other equipment at auctions with a view of reselling them, although mostly he never got around to reselling them. But gradually his hoarding of junk that he brought to the 40 acres the sanctuary now sits on increased and involved junk of no value. He deteriorated into dumpster diving and even got stuck in a dumpster and called me crying because he did not know where he was. So this is something she's putting on her website, talking about her husband who gave her her start, that he was crying and he has mental illness, and she's putting this out there. Back then, Alzheimer's was not commonly used word. I had not heard of it. Someone mentioned Alzheimer's to me, and I got Don to agree to set up an appointment with the specialist, Dr. Gold and McQueen. Intervened and convinced him to see a psychiatrist. Dr. Blasini, he referred us to Dr. West and the same building who was not there. So Don saw Dr. Russell. He diagnosed Don with bipolar disorder and gave him a prescription to have an MRI at St. Joseph Hospital. I did not find the prescription until I was searching his bedside table looking for clues to his disappearance. I feel like she was fairly informed about what was going on with him getting diagnosed with bipolar disorder, but she had no idea that he had a prescription. His behavior became increasing strange. His behavior became increasing strange. He started refusing to use the bathroom and defecate. He started refusing to use the bathroom and defecating house. He brought in a homeless man to stay in our house. I rescheduled an appointment to see the specialist, Dr. Gold, but he disappeared before the appointment date. Don's wealth. Everyone repeat that lie that Don was a millionaire when I met him. He had a business cutting the axles off trailers pulled by tractors and selling the boxes as storage and the axles back Great Dane. I don't know if I'm reading this fucked up or she's typing this fucked up. If you search the property records, you will find he only owned 2 real estate properties at the time. He may well have been worth 6 figures and, coming from a very modest background, would have felt he was rich. No one, including Anne McQueen, who had access to his books, has ever provided any bank records or any other evidence that he had more than that. So she's just saying he's not rich when she met him. She's going to be the reason he got rich. One day at the bank, he overheard a bank officer say he had a $20,000 loan in default. He would be glad to sell for $2,000. He got the information, and because he could not read beyond a first grade level, asked me to look into it. In brief, we bought a loan, foreclosed, and sold the property for a substantial profit. That is what got us into the real estate business. We started buying defaulted loans from banks and going to the tax deed sales. This was before it became a popular business. There were a few people doing it. With me doing the research, negotiations, and title clearing on the properties, we built this portfolio and properties to rent and resell that was worth around $5 million at the time of his disappearance. Yikes, man. So she said that other article, the first article we read, they were saying how he was a genius with numbers and he was super smart, but she's saying he couldn't read on a first grade level. That's pretty interesting, I guess. So that's on her website. So this video is on their website, refuting Netflix. We'll just skim through this here a little bit, and then
we have turned down numerous people who came to us wanting to film because we did not think that they were going to do something meaningful. We thought they just wanted to do something sensational, and we didn't want to be part of it. So we trusted Eric and Rebecca when they told us that this documentary was going to be a meaningful piece of work that was going to be designed. We also believed them when they insisted that while Joe Exotic would be in it as one of the characters, he would not be the focus. When they told us that while they felt they had to mention the disappearance of Carole's husband, Don, 23 years before, as part of the context and background on her, that it would be done in a respectful and truthful way. Not only did they lie about that, they never even gave us a chance to respond to many of the false claims that ended up in the documentary. People like Joe Exotic and Doc Antle, who con people out of their money by convincing them that paying to pet tiger cubs somehow helps conservation. Eric Good and Rebecca Chaiklin. I believe they are devoid of integrity, don't care about the animals, and clearly do not care about the truth. Their only goal was to make something as inflammatory and salacious as possible so that Netflix would pay them millions for it. Anyone who spends an hour with Carole would come away knowing that there was no way she had any involvement in Don's disappearance. This week, Kim Kardashian tweeted asking followers if they thought Carole killed her husband. I doubt if Kim will see this video, but if she were to come and spend an hour with Carole, I know she would have her answer, and I know what it would be. I thought the next best thing that I could do would be to spend a minute or two just personally telling you what it is like to have been her husband and her partner in this mission to stop big cat abuse. We have never had an argument. We have never even had a harsh word. We make decisions together every week. At some point in the discussion, after going back and forth, one of us just says, you know what? I can see that this is more important to you than it is to me, and let's do it your way. The events that occurred leading up to Don's disappearance. That website is bigcatrescue.org/truth.
It's just so annoying. Just that the I wish it wasn't her that owned that place. You know, like, I understand there's abuse with these animals and stuff, but it seems like the only depiction that we get is this crazy Tiger King video, and all these people are nuts. She seems nuts, so you don't really know who's doing what, and it seems like they've all done something wrong at some point. So I don't know. I just don't think Carole's like super innocent, and I don't like how she says those other people can't have cats, but she can have cats, and seems to be doing everything else that she's saying that they are doing as well. That Aurora cat, that cat was apparently on that log. It was really expensive for that time when they bought it, and that would indicate that this was a high-priced cat. She paid for a high-priced cat, meaning it's not a rescue. There's another video here talking about how, on this BCR, of how she has paid for tons of cats, you know, and that means they're not rescues. So I would just advise everyone to do your own research, look into it a little bit, and see what you come up with. I'd be curious what you guys think. If I just think Joe Exotic, he's a bad guy, like I said, but I don't think he should be in prison till he dies, you know. Especially there's more bullshit with Carole and all this stuff about her husband than there is about him trying to get someone to kill her. Like, that's such a loose story. And like, can you trust the guy who's running the fucking farm now, that Jeff guy, and that bald dude with the teardrop? You trust them? I don't know. So like I said, comment what you think. If you like the video, like and subscribe, and I don't know, maybe I'll make another Tiger King follow-up video, but I can't promise anything. I'm just really bored because quarantine, you know. So all right, see ya.
We did find one statement that said no exotic cats have been bred there since 1997. Volunteers who worked there, however, say that's simply not true.
There were some binturons born.
Binturons are more commonly known as bear cats. Former volunteer Jim Moore says he believes the bear cats' births were no accident.
Was that purposeful?
Yes.
The newsletter.
You got me on that. I don't know.
I understand.
It's not in the list of cats that we currently have.
The list, Baskin says, shows she's telling the truth about the animals here at Big Cat Rescue, and that they're now in better homes than they once were. But she does not want us to copy or videotape the list, for fear her opponents will, in her words,
use the portions that they can zero in on.
But you can't prosecute, there's just no use. There's nothing left but tiger trap. Oh, here, kitty, kitty. Well, mama Mama's got some treats for you.